Hey guys, Tor here, and if you can't tell, well, maybe you can't tell, but I've got bat earrings on and I'm wearing plaid because I am already getting psyched for Halloween. It was a little bit chilly this morning, so I decided it's officially fall now. Here we go, 5 adult-friendly Halloween party games. Game number 1 is called Murder in the Dark, and how you play it is simple. Take a deck of cards, remove the jokers, aces, and kings from it. You then replace 1 ace and 1 king into the deck. Shuffle the deck and deal all the cards out to each player. Depending how many people you have playing the game, everybody may not get the same number of cards, but that is totally fine. The person who's dealt the ace is the murderer. The person who's dealt the king is the detective, but everybody's cards should remain a secret so that everybody doesn't know who the murderer detective are. Once the roles have been decided, then you can start playing the game. Gameplay should be done in a room or a series of rooms that doesn't have a lot of objects that could be tripped over in the dark. Turn out the lights and instruct players to walk carefully around the room, trying to avoid getting clustered together in groups. Now it's the murderer's time to try and find victims. They will quietly go up to someone and either shake their hand and sort of scratch their palm a little, or tap them on the shoulder, or simply whisper very quietly, "You're dead." At this point, the murderer hopes they were stealthy enough because the victim can freely signal in some way that they're dead without making a whole scene, but I think it's a little more fun if you play it up, like, dramatically. Now, the other players have the ability to discover the corpses. So as soon as somebody is found to have been killed by the murderer, the player who found the body can scream out, "Murder in the dark!" and the light should be then turned back on. As a house ruling, you can choose to decide whether or not the murderer is allowed to hide the bodies or move bodies from one room to another in order to avoid being captured sooner. So once Murder in the Dark has been cried out and the lights have been turned back on, everybody should gather into the same room and the detective will try to work out who the murderer is. At this point, it's totally up to you if you want to allow the detective to have 1 question, 3 questions, only to the living players obviously, and they can try and work their way to figuring out who the murderer was. And if by that point the murderer has not been caught, the murderer wins. If the detective successfully guesses who the murderer was, the detective wins and all the other living people. Either way, the corpses lose. Game number 2, and I really would like to do this one this year, is a video scavenger hunt. So decide on certain things around your town, whether they be landmarks, statues, parks, and write hints or riddles which would guide your guests to get to those locations. And then at that location, there would be an instruction for something that would have to be done by the guests and filmed or taken a photograph of. Once all the guests have found all the locations and returned back to the home, you can then use those photos and videos to make a fun slideshow to watch for the rest of the night. Game number 3 is a horror movie survival game. You can find tons of lists online of questions about horror movie situations, such as how do you know your house is haunted, or what's the number 1 reason you would move out of your house in a horror movie. Stuff like that. There's tons of them online. And then you would break up your guests into teams. Each team would have a set amount of time to decide what they would do in the horror movie situation, and then everybody would vote on who did the best job of surviving that situation. Or you can choose one person who is sort of the speaker of the room and they get to pick which team did the best scenario. Game number 4, Candle Fortune Telling. For this game, it's pretty simple. You can get the supplies you would need probably from the dollar store. You just need to pick up a few candles of different colors and write down your own personalized horoscope or predictions based on each color of the candle. It would be a good idea to have several different predictions for each different color because depending on the amount of guests you get, you don't want everybody having the same fortune. Light all of the candles in some kind of a candle stand so that they're all lined up in a row. Blindfold your guests one by one and have them blow out the candles, but preferably not all of them. And then based on which candles were left lighted, that would tell them which fortunes were going to be theirs for the year, and then they could draw fortunes from those colors. For example, green may mean wealth, purple may mean career advancement, perhaps blue is travel. Game number 5, very simple, good for all ages, and I think it's especially good for adults, maybe adults who don't necessarily all know each other because it gets everybody talking to each other. Monster Guess Who. Essentially, you just take a big piece of tape or a sticky note and put it on your guest's back and write on it the name of a monster. So Frankenstein, Dracula, the werewolf, the swamp thing, whatever. You get the idea. And then each person has to go around and ask the other guests yes/no questions until they can figure out who they are, which monster they are. This is fantastic because it starts conversations between people. So there you have it. That's my 5 fun Halloween party games that are good for adults. Hopefully this video was slightly more succinct than last year's version, and I do fully intend to go and find more adult-friendly party games, maybe not just for Halloween, but for other holidays. Please leave a comment down below if you are going to try or have tried any of these games, or any ideas for other party games that are fun for adults. Thanks so much for watching again, guys, and I will see you all next time. Bye!